Hello, this is for Top Miniatures, Soren and the painting team. We're about to start on our project, and this video is just kind of to share my thoughts about the ability to store these pieces when you finish painting them. Obviously, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of money to make them beautiful, and I do want to figure out some way of securing them so that the paint isn't damaged and that type of thing. So I've already uploaded a kind of a long video in over 1 hour, talking about this Broken Tokens Blood Rage insert. But that is, a lot of that is just sort of showing me building it, my thoughts on the quality of the box and things like that. And you're not going to be using that, you're going to be using the Game Doctors version from Germany, which I think has some advantages, but also has some of the same disadvantages. And I wanted to kind of talk about that, and by maybe illustrating my problems with this system, you can then look at the new one, and when you build it and look at it, you can see if the same problems apply. So let's start with the case to secure the clans. Okay, there's going to be 6 of these, and the Game Doctors one also has 6 of them. The difference here is that for the Game Doctor one, they have the ship in its own little space, and they have it basically sitting just like that. I like that system a little bit better. Here in the Broken Token version, you kind of slide it into a circle slot. Now all of these miniatures are supposed to slide in the circle slot, and it's supposed to be in place by just kind of pushing. This is a problem. The Game Doctors version uses the same mechanic, but the problem is if the circle is not properly cut, or if the plastic here is a little bit different in size, it's very loose. And if it's very loose, it tends to move quite a bit, and it's not secure. In this case, I want to use example because this ship, for whatever reason, maybe it's the blood raged pieces problem. This maybe is a little bit too thin, or maybe this hole is too big. But the bottom line is this thing does not rest in this slot at all. It's completely loose, and it just kind of moves around. So you can imagine that would cause this to move around and maybe hit the other miniatures and damage the paint, which is not good since everything here is so tightly packed. Another problem, of course, is that these miniatures have the colored bases to protect the base, but this doesn't. The sail is the color, not the base. And so therefore, if you spend a lot of time painting this beautiful water and all of those effects, and then you take this and you shove it into the slot like this, then of course 100% it's going to damage the paintwork on the base. And so for that reason, this particular insert with the ship kind of being forced into the slot is, in my opinion, not effective. I do like the Game Doctor version that you guys bought for me, where it just kind of sits it in there, is a little bit nicer. Of course, it's still a little bit loose, and it's still in the little wood, but again, there'll be less damage than if you have to force it into the slot every time. And if you primer it and seal it very well, it should be okay. So that's what. Looking at this in general, I feel that the whole slot system, as you can see here, is just not very effective because again, it's just so loose. And this is not even in there. And then again, this thing here, I'm pressing hard, it's just not secure. So using the circle slots to try to secure these pieces is difficult. You basically have to use this wooden slat, and then the wooden slat again fixes this thing in place so that it doesn't move as much. But even so, as you can see, there is still some give, even so. And like, I'm moving the leader right now, there's still a little bit of give. So again, I would say, analyze the Game Doctors one and see if their slots maybe fit better, if they're more secure. My inclination is that if you don't find that to be very, very secure, then you may have to consider magnetizing as a modification. So instead of using a simple circle slot in the wood to snap the bases in, which is very variable, and then using this to try to prevent it from moving, if you feel like they move too much, then one way, of course, is by applying magnets to the bottom of the bases, and then the magnet is rare earth, you snap into position. Just some thoughts, okay? Here, the pieces are in connection with the main miniature section, and in the Game Doctor's version, it's a separate box, okay? But anyways, my two main problems with this is the way the ship is placed, which is gonna damage it for sure, and the fact that it's not secure using these circle slots. You have to use this, and even with that on, it's a little bit shaky. Okay, so much for that. And of course, with the Raven clan, it's even worse because all those miniatures have, spears. Once you straighten the spears, it could be very tricky putting them in a, in a orientation where they don't hit each other. And again, these slots simply do not have enough control. Whereas if you magnetize, it snaps in place and doesn't move. And you can also, use it to maximize the space more. But again, I have the broken token insert. You're going to have the Game Doctor's version, and you can analyze that part. Moving to the Gods of Asgard, this situation. Again, I want to illustrate the same thing, which is this is very loose, very loose, very loose. And in this one, Odin, they were not able to figure out what to do with Odin. And if you look at the video, he couldn't be placed in here. Only the throne could be placed. Odin's left out. You had to just either put him floating in this area, or you have to put him in another box floating. And of course, if the Odin is painted, it's no good to have him float. Please check the Game Doctor's insert and see if they have a reasonable solution for both Odin and Thor. In here, Thor's hammer is so long, so tall. You can see it's rubbing against the ceiling. As you're moving it, you can tell this is actually hitting the top. You can't paint this, with all the beautiful colors. A level 3 paint job. This is unacceptable. It's going to damage it. So again, this is not a very good solution. As you can see over here, the throne is fixed in position. Odin is nowhere to be found because there's nowhere to put him. If you put him on the throne, you cannot close the lid. And if you don't put him on the throne, there's nowhere to fix him. So again, you can get around this by using magnets and things like that. But let's see if the Game Doctors has a little bit better solution. You judge. And again, this guy, again, not even enough space for him. He's too tall for this. You can see here, this is the monsters. They gave 8 of these here, and they have some extras, just like there were some extras there. Again, you can see that they're basically very loose, and if you rely again on the circle, it's just not a very good way of fixing them sometimes. So these are my thoughts on the weaknesses of this particular setup. A problem with Thor, problem with Odin, and again the problem with the ships. So with the big monsters, the Game Doctors has something very similar. They have this one where it's actually permanently part of the box, and it's like this little, almost like a corridor where everybody is kind of sitting. Now here you see that the broken token solution is they created this little wooden clip, and then you shove it in. So I'll give you an example with the Dwarf Chieftain. You take him, and then you basically go like this, and then you slide it in place, and then he's in place right here, okay? There's a lot of problems with that. Obviously, if you do this, no matter how well you prime the base, it's going to scratch it as you go in and out, so that's no good. And then number 2, if you want to do some nice basin effects, if the base effects are too thick, you're going to run into this part right here. Now, this is part of what holds it in place, but again, it limits how much base effect you can. If it's the edge, it will run into this immediately. So this is a pretty big problem. Both the scratch on the side, which I can live with because you're going to put this into a colored base anyway, but you can't do much with the basing. And part of a great level, some of these guys, these monsters, I'm going to ask for a level 4 paint job. Level 4 paint job is going to have a lot of nice base effects, right? And so you cannot use this system to hold them in place when you're going to have some nice work on the base. And as you can see, again, look at how much room is wasted because you're using these clips to hold them without moving. you have a lot more efficiency by just using, I think, again, magnets to try to modify. The Game Doctor seems to be able to have gotten around the solution. I was not able to look at the detail when I saw the pictures on the internet, and there was no reviews of this. And so you'll see in person how these things are held in position on the Game Doctors, and whether, again, a minor magnet modification can keep it without moving. If it was a broken tokens, I would get rid of this entire thing. This and this just gone, just a base with the two side walls in the back, and then it would just be all magnets to secure these pieces. Again, with magnet, you could even move this aside. Odin's very small. You could squeeze Odin into this area, and now he would be very well protected, compared to where he typically is. And there's even room for an Odin and a Thor. So as you can see, this takes up so much space, very inefficient use in that respect, because they're trying to figure out how to keep it steady, and adding magnets would kind of mess up the entire insert business model, because they ship it flat to save on shipping and also to prevent breakage, and you make it yourself. If they were to put in the whole magnet system, it would be a lot more expensive, a lot more difficult. But of course, since we are customizing these, we have the ability to do that. So there's that. Same idea. Here's the big monsters, and they use the clips to hold them in position. So, in my opinion, I think that what should happen is, you're going to be getting most of the miniatures anyways. You're only missing 20 miniatures. You are missing, the, of course, exclusive ones. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then the werewolf is 4. You're missing Healy, that's 5. Those are exclusives, only I have them. They're quite expensive. And then you're missing the 3 extra monsters, from the 5th expansion, the 3 alternate monsters. So that's 8 total minis. 3 from here, and then the 4, and then Healy the God. That's 8 total. And then, of course, the 12 is the Kickstarter Wild Boar Clan, the leader, the 8 warriors, the ship, and the 2 shamans. So total is going to be only 20 miniatures, along with some of the 3D tokens and glory tokens and little things like that. So that's not going to take a lot of, I should be able to package it pretty quickly. But once you have the game starter, once you have the game doctor's inserts, and you have everything, then please assemble it and then begin to sort of fiddle around with the unpainted miniatures, because it's a lot easier, I think, obviously, to work with those. You know exactly what's going on. You haven't put any time into basing or painting, and already begin to think about the potential problems that insert is going to pose, and how to get around that, and what modifications is reasonable. And I think that step should be done early in the planning process, so that if you need to slide in, out, look at ways of making things fit, you're doing it with unpainted miniatures. It's a lot harder, of course, when all that work has been done, in my opinion. I'm not married to the idea of these inserts. They're very elegant to me. As you can see, when done correctly, they all fit beautifully in just a box. So it's great, but if you feel like, hey, you know what, for this level of paint job costing thousands of dollars, it's not the greatest solution, or it's impossible, then that's okay. Just send me the Game Doctors. I have multiple copies of the game. I can use it, to store, for instance, unpainted version, and then I can always use the foam from Feldar, which is a German company, and it protects every little piece individually. But if you can somehow make the modifications and make it work reasonably well, that would be great as well. So these are my thoughts again for how to package the inserts into the how to package the miniatures into the inserts, and again my thoughts on modification. I have high hopes for the Game Doctor one, so I'm kind of waiting a little bit nervously for your thoughts on it. At least on the website, it seems like their solution is a little bit elegant, and it seems that they addressed some of the glaring deficiencies, of the other ones, and they thought about those things. Not perfect, they were honest. They emailed me, they said not perfect, but I think with a little bit of modification with magnets and things like that, it could be a pretty decent solution. So, who knows, maybe their wood inserts just fits a little bit easier, they move a little bit less, but this guy, they move quite a lot, and so it does make me a little bit nervous. Thank you again for your time and attention, Soren and team, And I'll make another video later, just kind of detailing my thoughts about how to go about maybe my general thoughts about painting the clans. And again, I know that I've never done a project like this before, and so I obviously will also defer to your experience and expertise, but I'll give you some of my philosophies, very general philosophies. I'm not one of those, people who have like 85 pages of notes, and it's like, I want the fur to be this type of animal, and I want this earring to be red. I'm not like one of those. I prefer to trust in the artist. I pay for level 3, and I know that it looks good. But in general, I think some philosophy we have to share so you have some direction to go. Okay, thank you again for attention, and I'll make another video later on. But this is again my thoughts on, how to secure some of these things and go from there.